Timothy King was 11 years old. On the evening of March 16, 1977, he told his parents he was walking to the pharmacy down the street. He needed to pick something up. It was a quick trip. He'd be right back. He never came home. 6 days later, 2 teenagers found his body in a shallow ditch alongside Gill Road in Livonia, Michigan. He had been suffocated. He had been cleaned. His clothes had been washed and pressed before they were put back on him. And the autopsy found something that has haunted everyone who has ever touched this case. Shortly before he died, Timothy King had eaten Kentucky Fried Chicken. Someone had fed him his favorite meal. Then they killed him. That detail doesn't make sense until you understand the full picture. And once you do understand it, you won't be able to stop thinking about it. This is the story of the Oakland County Child Killer. 4 children murdered in the suburbs of Detroit over 13 months. The largest murder investigation in American history at the time. And a killer who, nearly 50 years later, has never been identified. Oakland County, Michigan sits 30 miles north of Detroit. In the mid-1970s, it was everything Detroit was not. Quiet, suburban, tree-lined streets, 2-car garages, kids riding bikes to the corner store without their parents watching from the window. This was the kind of place where nothing happened. That was the point. Between February 1976 and March 1977, 4 children vanished from Oakland County. All of them were taken in broad daylight in familiar neighborhoods, doing ordinary things. A pool tournament, a trip to 7-Eleven, a run to the pharmacy. Each one was held captive for days, sometimes nearly 3 weeks. Each one was bathed, fed, their clothes were washed. Then each one was killed and placed in the snow, in public view, near roadways, where they would be found quickly. Nobody who studied this case could explain bathing and washing. It wasn't remorse. Forensic evidence ruled that out. It was something else, something that spoke to a psychology investigators had never encountered. The children weren't being hidden. They were being displayed, cleaned and presented, like the killer was communicating something. Nobody ever decoded what. Mark Douglas Stebbins was 12 years old, and he was good at pool. On February 15, 1976, he went to an American Legion Hall for a pool tournament and didn't come home. 4 days later, his body was found in the parking lot of an office building in Southfield, Michigan. He was wearing the same clothes he had on when he disappeared. His wrists and ankles showed rope marks. He had been bound throughout his captivity. His mother Ruth told People magazine what those 4 days were like. She kept hearing noises in the house. She kept thinking it was Mark. She set 3 places at the table every night, hoping he'd walk through the door. On the 4th day, the police called instead. Later, at the same parking lot where Mark's body was found, Ruth discovered something worse. A commemorative card from his funeral had been left there. A card given to everyone who attended the service. I didn't recognize everyone who came, Ruth told the magazine. I might even have shaken hands with the killer. She shook the killer's hand at her son's funeral. 10 months passed. Then, on December 22, 1976, 12-year-old Jill Robinson left her home in Royal Oak after an argument with her mother over dinner. It was the kind of fight families have every day. Something about the meal. Something small. Jill grabbed her backpack and walked out. The next morning, her bicycle was found behind a hobby store nearby. On December 26th, 4 days after she disappeared, her body was found alongside Interstate 75 in Troy, Michigan, within view of the Troy police station. She was fully clothed. She was still wearing her backpack. Autopsy reports showed she had been fed and cared for at least 3 days before she was killed. She had been shot in the face with a 12-gauge shotgun. Her mother, Carol, told People, "It's the small things that get to you. The hardest thing is when someone asks how many children I have, and I automatically say 3. I can't believe that now it's only 2. She still automatically says 3. That's what this case does to people. January 2nd, 1977. 10-year-old Christine Mihelich left her home in Berkeley, Michigan to walk to the 7-Eleven store on 12 Mile Road, half a mile from her house. She didn't come back. For 19 days, her mother Deborah went on television, every day, every platform she could find, pleading for information, pleading for her daughter's return. On the 19th day, a mail carrier found Christine's body on the side of a rural road in Franklin Village. She was buried in a snowbank, 6 miles from home. fully clothed. The autopsy confirmed she had been smothered to death less than 24 hours earlier in a Nantiduraf Nasir Nanshira, meaning she had been alive for 18 of those 19 days. Deborah Ascroft told people she was living in hell. Then she said something that stopped investigators cold. Chris was really a joy. This is why whoever took her kept her so long. He was enjoying her company. At least this is what we have told ourselves, and I prefer not to think any differently. A mother building a story she could survive. Because the alternative, what was actually happening in that room during those 18 days, was something no parent could hold in their mind and keep functioning. Timothy King was the last confirmed victim, 11 years old, Birmingham, Michigan, March 16, 1977. A quick trip to the pharmacy. When he didn't come home, his mother Marion did something extraordinary. She wrote a letter to the killer. Directly on the front page of the Detroit News, she addressed it to whoever had taken the other children. She begged them to let Timothy go. She told them what kind of boy he was. She made him real to whoever was reading. The killer read it and kept Timothy for 6 more days. On March 22nd, Timothy's body was found in a shallow ditch 11 miles from home. He had been suffocated. He had been cleaned and groomed before death. His clothes had been washed, and the autopsy confirmed he had eaten Kentucky Fried Chicken shortly before he died. This is where investigators hit a wall they couldn't get past. KFC was Timothy's favorite. Whoever held him knew that, or asked him, and then went out and bought it for him. They fed this boy his favorite meal. They bathed him and washed his clothes. And then they killed him and left him in a ditch in the snow. The psychology of that sequence defied every profile the task force had built. What happened next was the largest murder investigation in American history at the time. A multi-agency task force assembled from 13 jurisdictions. Law enforcement checked more than 18,000 tips. A $70,000 reward was posted. Oakland County released "Don't Go With Strangers" bumper stickers, t-shirt iron-ons, and recorded radio jingles. Every gremlin owner in Oakland County was questioned after a witness reported seeing Timothy talking to a man near a blue AMC gremlin outside the pharmacy. The composite sketch went everywhere. A white male, 25 to 35 years old, shaggy dark hair, sideburns. Someone who could keep children captive for weeks without neighbors noticing. Someone children trusted. And then, nothing. Every lead collapsed. Every witness account led to a dead end. The task force, after years of work, disbanded in December 1978 without a single arrest. Before it disbanded, investigators uncovered something connected but separate, a child pornography ring called Brother Paul's Children's Mission, operating on North Fox Island in Lake Michigan. A ring, active, linked to multiple suspects in the area. Whether it was connected to the murders, officially, was never established. But the name entered the file, and it stayed there. A few weeks after Timothy King's murder, a psychiatrist working with the task force received a letter. It was riddled with spelling errors. The author called himself Alan. Alan wrote that he was the sadomasochistic slave of the killer, a man he called Frank. He wrote that he and Frank had both served in Vietnam, that Frank had been traumatized by killing children in the war and was now taking revenge on affluent communities, like Birmingham, for sending soldiers overseas. Alan said he had accompanied Frank while Frank hunted for children. He said he was losing his sanity, that he was suicidal, that he was terrified. He offered photographic evidence in exchange for immunity. He told the psychiatrist to confirm contact by printing a specific code phrase, "Weather Bureau says trees will bloom in 3 weeks," in that Sunday's Detroit Free Press. The psychiatrist arranged to meet Alan at a bar. Alan never showed up. He was never heard from again. The letter sat in the file for decades. It was never publicly released. Investigators who requested access to verify their own leads were denied. Someone knew who did this. Someone reached out, and then that someone vanished, and the door closed behind them. For years, the case went cold. Then Barry King, Timothy's father, started digging. Barry spent decades fighting the Michigan State Police for access to investigation files. He and his son Chris eventually forced the release of 3,400 pages of records. Inside those records was a name, Christopher Brian Bush. Bush was the son of a General Motors executive. He had been in police custody shortly before Timothy's abduction, suspected of involvement in child pornography. He was never charged in the murders. In November 1978, he was found dead in his apartment. It had been ruled a suicide. When investigators finally searched his apartment, they found blood-stained ligatures and pinned to the wall a hand-drawn image of a screaming boy that bore a striking resemblance to Mark Stebbins. There had been no confirmed Oakland County Child Killer activity for nearly 20 months before Bush died. The King family produced a documentary called Decades of Deceit, condemning police for ignoring these leads. Barry King never stopped pushing. He gave everything he had left to finding out what happened to his son. In 2012, DNA testing exonerated Bush. His DNA did not match the profile taken from the victims' bodies, the drawing, the ligatures, the timing. None of it was enough. The door closed again. There is one more figure in this case. He has never been identified. He goes by the name Jeff. In 2010, Jeff gave a recorded interview to Oakland County investigators. He claimed to have spent 10,000 hours investigating the case. He claimed to know the identity of the killer. He claimed there were not 4 victims, but somewhere between 11 and 16. He refused to name the killer. He said he would only reveal the name if authorities first shared specific evidence with him to confirm his suspect's identity using police records before going public. The prosecutor dismissed his interview as a rambling theory involving pagan holidays and the lunar calendar. His request to see the Allen letter was denied. Jeff went to journalists instead. He went to the families. He filed a $100 million lawsuit through an attorney, alleging a cover-up and demanding the prosecutor's resignation. He has never, in any public forum, named the person he says committed these murders. He says he knows. He has not said, and somewhere out there, if Jeff is telling the truth, a man who bathed 4 children, fed them their favorite meals, washed their clothes, and left them in the snow is still alive. The DNA profile exists. It matches no one in the system. Before the ending, if you've watched this far, you already know why this case matters. 4 children, the largest murder investigation in American history. Nearly 50 years. No arrest. If you've heard anything at all,